Okay, so next up, we've got Tripp Corbin. He's going to be presenting the importance of a good elevator pitch. This is something that I personally struggle with just a hair. When people say, what do you do? I normally say Google Maps, but for an organization, and that kind of gets them there, but that's the most succinct way I've come up with. Alrighty, I'll hand over now to Tripp.
Hope everybody's enjoying the conference so far as we get started. For those that were in my workshop, I'm sorry you have to hear me talking again. So really happy to be here. I do want to say, please don't report what I'm drinking. I'm from Atlanta and I'm violating like 50 laws by drinking this beverage. So, but it's all they had here. I was disappointed. Anyway, so glad to be here and talk about the importance of a good elevator pitch. We are often asked, what do we do? And as we're saying, we say we do Google Earth, but on steroids, or we make maps, or we do data analytics or whatnot, but that really doesn't fully encompass all the things that we do, right? It doesn't do us justice. And I think a lot of this stems from, we don't really know what we do. I mean, we do stuff all the time on a daily basis, but we don't really equate all of that together, right? We know we come in the office, somebody comes in and asks for a map. Then somebody comes in and, oh, can you put a dashboard together? Oh, can you stand up with this widget? Those kind of things. So it's very hard for us to be able to put together a quick and concise definition of the things we do. But it's important to be able to do that because we work in a very technical world. I know when I try to describe some of what I do to my wife, if I get really down into the details, I usually, after I talk to her a little bit, I ask, so dear, what did you hear? And it usually goes something like this. Well, Tripp, I heard you say blah, blah, blah map, blah, blah, blah database, blah, blah, blah application, blah, blah, blah results. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I thought I had toned the techno down a bit, but I guess not. Right. And you know, my wife's a very intelligent person, regardless of the fact that she married me, that we won't count that against her, but you know, she should know these things. So it's really important that we be able to describe what we do because, I mean, we are the salespeople, right? If we don't understand what we do, we got to be the people we work for can't. And when we go and ask for more money for the new backpack LiDAR unit because we want to start doing ArcGIS indoors. And somebody goes, great, you want $100,000 for that new unit. Why? What's the importance? What do you bring to the table? How do I justify that? And that's one of the big questions that I deal with is, you know, how do I sell what I do? Well, if you can't describe what you do, you can't sell what you do. Okay? So this is where it becomes important. Okay? And I'm very not used to being tied to this podium, but I'm afraid if I get around there, I'm going to get feedback. Plus, we have the online people. So I want to move. Sorry about that. So what is an elevator pitch? When we're talking about this, what are we referring to? Well, it's, you know, the basic concept is you get in an elevator with somebody and you have till they get off that elevator to describe what you do or sell what you do. You know, pitch to them what's going on. So it's a very short idea. And the key here is this doesn't have to be you blurting out. Think about it. When you're with somebody and you're trying to sell or explain something, or somebody's trying to sell or explain something to you, do you like it? Let's say you go to buy a car, which I wouldn't do right now, by the way. You go to buy a car. If that salesperson comes up to you and doesn't ask you what you're looking for, what things you would like in a car, just goes, hey, I have this wonderful unit right here. It's only $25,000. You can do it right now and drive right out the door. What's your response going to be? Thank you. See you later. I'm going somewhere else. Okay? The same is true when you're trying to put together this elevator pitch. So you want to converse with them. And the first thing you want to do is establish your credibility. Why should they listen to you? What do you bring to the table that makes you an expert? Okay? Make the audience curious. Why should they care? Like I said, if I'm talking to my wife about what I do, if I start getting into, oh my God, the latest version of Esri supports all this and I can do arcade to build this, she's not going to care. Y'all would, but she's not going to care. So make sure you're talking to the audience on things that are of interest to them. Okay. For me, link GIS with an old car restoration and we'll be good. We'll talk for hours. Okay. And then make sure your audience wants to come talk with you again, right? And by that, make sure they have some way to contact you. You made them curious. They're excited. You're going to fix a problem for them. But how do they get back to you, or how do you get back to them? All of this should be part of this. So how do you establish your credibility? How do you make people understand that you are an SME? There's another acronym because we love those. Subject matter expert, right? Well, give them your name. Who are you talking about? Hey, my name is Tripp Corbin. I'm the business development manager for surveying and mapping. Been working in the field for over 30 years. Okay, that's got a good name. Tripp is a wonderful name, easy to remember. I like it. Give them a title. It sounds really important, which is really not, by the way. And then, I've been doing this for a while. And you may, depending on who you're talking to, if you're a licensed surveyor, like my colleague back there, Yvonne, right? Might be worth mentioning if it's pertinent to the conversation. Or, hey, I have an Esri technical cert, or Microsoft, or whatever, right? You may want to mention that. The key here is you want to tailor this discussion to the person you're talking to. How do you do that? Well, if you're lucky, you know the person. You've done some preliminary work, it's the city manager, county administrator, an elected official, so you have some idea there. If not, ask them. There's a novel concept. Hey, you've established it. My name is Tripp Corbin, business development manager for SAM. Been doing this for 30 years. Who are you? What do you do? Why are you here? You enjoying the whatever it is, right? Make sure you have that conversation. So, I've already kind of given you an example. Here's another example of that kind of introduction. Remember, this is short and sweet, but you want to keep the conversation flowing. So then once you've established yourself and you know who you're talking to, find out what issues they're having. Hey, have you heard about this new copper lead removal stuff that's going out there for water systems, where you've got to identify where all the lead and copper is in the system, not only on your side, but on the client side? Oh, no, I hadn't heard of that. Oh, well, this is a big problem. And, the technology I use, GIS, can really help you with doing the inventory, identifying where those problems are so you can be in compliance, right? So find out what issues is it. Hey, have you heard about this next gen 911 thing? Are you ready for that? No, I've never, I just call 911. What's next gen? Opens the door. And again, has that conversation. And then once you find out what the problem is, then you can start talking about how you might solve it. Maybe you've worked somewhere else that you've had a solution for. That's going to make them curious. We like it when we solve problems. Right? My dad taught me a couple of different things with business. He ran his own engineering company for 40 plus years. And two big things he taught me, among, many. But first, you get work from your friends, so make lots of friends. So be personable, all that. But be the solution, not the problem. Right? So that's the same thing we want to do. We want to solve these problems. This is our opportunity to show people, get our foot in the door. So I've talked about some of these already. Okay. And then you want to set the hook. By the way, that's me fishing in Alaska last year. Couldn't make it up there this year. My dad and I, my dad, his brother, and me on occasion go up there to go salmon fishing. Interesting story with this one. I'd never fly fished until last year. And my dad and my uncle told me how many of y'all fly fish? Completely off topic here. Okay. So, about, getting it out there, and I forget the threading of the line, whatever it's called. I forget. They told me all about that and casting and all that. They never told me what to do when you get a fish on. So if you're not used to fly fishing and you've done standard reels, you fling it out there, you reel it in, fish, you just yank back, it sets the hook. With a fly, You don't let go of that line, because that's what I was doing. I got fish on, let go of that line, and then pulled back, you had all the slack, the fish bit the, anyway. The key here is make sure you know how to set the hook. I brought it back in, guys. I brought it back in with it. How can you help them? How can they get back with you? Or how can you get back in touch with them? You know, it does no good to set this hook if you're not going to follow it up, to reel them in, get them up in the net, right? So find out, hey, enjoyed this conversation. I know it's been quick. I'd love to talk to you more because I really think I can help you out. What would be best? Can I shoot you a text, shoot you an email? Maybe we can set up a meeting next week. Sure, here's my card. Or here's my email, whatever, here, you got, let me text you, whatever it is. Make sure you get a way to, and then please, oh my God, follow that up. I don't know how many people I've talked to, looking for an opportunity that I need some help with something or whatnot, have a great conversation. 2 weeks later, I haven't heard back. And I'm like, I ping them. Oh, I'm sorry, I got busy, I forgot. That is not solving somebody's problem. That's being the problem. Okay? So make sure you follow up. And I do understand people get busy and all those things, but try to get back to them as quickly as you can. And all of that's going to help make a much better, with the right one, pitch. So here's a good sample pitch. I'm not going to read this to you because you've heard some of this already, but again, you want to make sure this is a conversation. That quick response of Google Maps on steroids, or Google Earth, or Yahoo, or whatever it is, again, is not doing us justice. To help ensure our value, our job, getting funding for training, coming to conferences like this is that opportunity to sell what you do. Y'all, we do amazing work. Think back to when COVID came out. How many of those dashboards got stood up? How much was mapping involved in that effort to respond? That was us, guys. Think of natural disasters. The recent fire down in Hawaii. Our community, being GIS, was at the core of all that. We do amazing things, but how many people realize it? Probably very few. This is our opportunity to do that. A couple of things to point out as you're putting together this elevator pitch is, again, make sure you know your audience. Have that conversation. If you're not sure who you're talking to, find out. People love to talk about themselves. I know I do. I could stand up here for hours talking about myself. Not that y'all want to hear that, but absolutely. So take the time to talk to them, get to know them. Again, you're in a finite time. You can't spend a whole bunch of time on this, but get to know them, understand what their role is, what their problems are. You may want to have some basic pitches prepared that you can then adjust on the fly, right? You're not going to have one size fits all. You're not going to have one description of what GIS is and that fits everything. It's not going to be that. You need to have some things. And if you're nervous, if you're not good at public speaking, which we're about to touch on in just a second, practice. Get in front of a mirror, get with your spouse or significant other, get with your dog. I find dogs and cats are very forgiving audiences. They just sit there and wag their tail. The cats, now they'll look at you, think you're stupid and walk off, but your dog will sit there because you're giving them attention, or her, right? So, practice giving them. Don't be scared. Don't think you're being silly. Now, why are we usually bad at giving these kind of elevator pitches? Well, first we talked about some of what we do is very technical and we're not sure how to maybe kind of dumb that down. I think the other part is, how many of y'all like public speaking? Okay, I think 4 people besides me raised their hands. Okay. I love public speaking. I am much better at standing in front of here talking to y'all like this. Tonight at the social, and tomorrow, you'll probably find me leaning up against the wall or sitting at a table. I am horrible about mingling. I'm very nervous. When we have gatherings at my house, I usually greet people at the door, say thank you, and then I go to my office, hide behind my desk. And my wife is the social butterfly. She does all that. So, that's a little hint to come up to me at those events and say hi. Because I'm very nervous. I'm very much an introvert. That's hard to believe, I know, but it's true. But I think by and large, we get fearful of public speaking. We get nervous. We get scared. And the thought of it, even talking to a person in an elevator, we get scared. We get this look on our faces when we think about it. And that's fine. It's normal, absolutely normal to be a bit nervous. All that. The key here is when you're talking about GIS, you're an expert. You're an SME. You're the ones that help solve the problems. So don't be, keep that in mind. That should instill some confidence in you. The next part of this is don't be scared to say, I don't know. If somebody asks you a question, you don't know the answer, say, I don't know. I did that some in my workshop this morning. With the amount of technology involved in what we do, there's no way you can know it all. So when you do happen to say, if somebody asks a question, and this is true whether you're giving a presentation like this or you're giving that elevator pitch, what does saying, I don't know, do to what you've said before that point? Anybody? It gives it legitimacy, right? People know if you're going to say, I don't know, then you're not going to be blowing smoke. What you said up to that point is true, at least to the best of your knowledge, right? So it adds legitimacy. If you do get heckled, and I've been doing public speaking for a long time. In the whole years I've been doing this, I've been heckled one time. It was down in Florida at the Seven Hills Regional Users Group Conference in Tallahassee. I was talking about the latest and greatest Esri release, and there happened to be somebody in there that hated anything, whether it was Esri, Autodesk, Microsoft, Bentley. If it wasn't open source, he didn't like it. And so he was heckling the whole time. Oh, the Esri tried that. Esri this, blah, 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 blah. Sir, I understand your point. I would love to talk with you later after the presentation. But he kept. Finally, the audience themselves, several of the audience told him to shut up and get out. The audience took care of the problem. So the thing to remember is most people are happy it's you up there or you talk and not them. So they're going to give you the courtesy of, you have the courage, I'm not going to bother you. You may not say something that's completely right or something they think is wrong. They usually come up afterwards and say, hey, that point, they'll be very nice about it. So don't worry about it. The other part is nervous energy. You get up here at a podium, or like I usually like to walk around. As much as I love this, I still get nervous. And the way I deal with that is I usually move, which is a good thing because moving, instead of being tied to the podium, if I go out like this and start moving around, what does that do? It keeps you engaged. Whereas somebody sitting up here, GIS is the building of maps tied to databases, and you creep down like that because you're scared, right? It's not good. Use that energy. Make your talk more energetic, entertaining in there. And again, practice makes perfect. I get up and I will practice most of these, whether they're a workshop or a presentation, up until the day before, the night before, to get it right. A couple of do's and don'ts here. Don't just sit here and just read your presentation. How many of y'all have been to presentations where the speaker gets like this and then does this? Don't read your presentation size. Don't overdo your presentation. Okay, your audience can read. At least our audiences can read. Go to some engineering conferences, I'm not so sure, but here we can. Okay, so the slideshow, whatever you're using, should emphasize key points, help remind you of things. You should be the content, right? If you're going to have just read the slide, just hand out the slide and go, come see me after you've read this and I'll happily talk to you about it. Don't insult their intelligence. Don't try to overdo it. So earlier this year, we had to go to a sales training session in SAM. The guy they had doing the training, very knowledgeable. He'd been doing sales for several decades. Every single slide had some sort of animation on it, completely distracted from the points he was trying to make. So don't go overboard to try to hide your nervousness, because that's another thing. I'll distract them. They'll look up here because I'll have fancy things going on. Okay. Don't do it. Doesn't say you can't use some of that, because it can be entertaining. It can liven things up, but don't do it. The other thing that happens is people get up here and they get nervous and they want to go talk like this, right? So we got to get through this and I'm going to have the update and you're done. Right? Everybody remember the commercials in the 80s with the speed talker doing things, right? Take your time. That's why I brought a drink up here. Often your mouth will outrun your brain, or your brain will outrun your mouth. It's going to happen. Stop. Collect your thoughts. Having something to drink is a great way to do that, because you will get dry mouth up here. Everybody knows that. So stopping to take a drink, they don't think suddenly your brain is gone. You know, they understand. It gives you a chance to catch up. Also, try to avoid these words. And, like, you know drives me crazy. Say, if I know, why are you telling me? Okay? We all do it. I'm sure I've done some of these while I've been talking to you. For some people, it becomes a drinking game. One of my former bosses, the boss, where I used to work before joining Sam, he loved buzzwords. So every time he was in a meeting, gave a presentation, he'd have some buzzwords in there. And we turned it into a drinking game, because a lot of these meetings were online and we get off, well, anyway, the meeting would end and it made for a fun day. We'll just leave it at that, right? The other part is generally don't give out handouts unless you're doing training. This is different for training, but if don't give handouts during or before the present. Why? They're distracted. People are going to be reading through that. They're not listening in because they've got something in their hand they're playing with, right? So afterwards, as a reminder or something, certainly a good way to go, but don't do that. The other thing I like to add is some good things to do here, which is when you do it, look at your audience. Make eye contact with people. Why? What does that do? I'm sorry, what was that? Engagement. You get engagement. You make a connection. If you connect with somebody, you start to trust them. You start to believe them. You think, oh, this might be something I should listen to, right? Now, I had some folks say, because you're looking at people, it gets nervous. Just look above their heads. So they think you're looking. Now, I am looking above. Can you not tell that I'm not looking at y'all at all? I'm looking at somewhere above where the exit signs are and whatever those detector things are up there. Yeah, that you can tell. Don't do that. Look at people. Make that contact. And I tried to do that out here. It's a bigger audience, a little harder. Keep it simple. The KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't go overboard. Again, pauses. Take a breath. Speed reading is not necessary up here. And again, think about who you're talking to. Are you talking to elected officials? Are you talking to fellow GIS people? Tailor your content accordingly. And again, to make sure you practice that. So I'm going to throw a quick plug in. How many of y'all have heard of URISA? The Urban and Regional Information Systems Association. I am a past president of said organization. There is a good chapter here in the Carolinas. URISA has put together something called the Leadership Academy, the GIS Leadership Academy. We had one here earlier in Charlotte. Was very well received. And you can see some other dates up here. This is a great way. We talk about a lot of things, public speaking, the need of a good elevator pitch. We also talk about other things like project management, budgeting, and so forth and so on in there. So here's some dates of that are coming up. We're also going to be next year launching our Advanced GIS Leadership Academy. So that's going to be the follow-on course. We're still working out all the curriculum with that, but it's going to build on the initial GLA there. So some good high-level things in that case. So with that, that's it. I think we may open it up for some discussion or questions, comments. Just no booing and throwing things at me. Okay, well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it.